Hey everybody, welcome back. So I know I've talked about this probably in the past some, but I want to update you a little bit on the state of advertising and sponsorships when you're thinking about monetizing your podcast. I just recently released a new course on monetizing your podcast over on LinkedIn Learning. If you have a membership over there, definitely go check it out. But I spent 95% of the course talking about ways to make money from your podcast that don't have to do with advertising or sponsors or finding advertisers for your show, all those types of things, because it just isn't realistic for most podcasters. Most podcasters are never going to have past the threshold of downloads that you need to actually make sufficient amounts of money off of advertising on your podcast or getting sponsors for your podcast. It's a possibility though. Okay. It's always a possibility that, in our clients base that we have over at Emerald City Productions, we have probably a third of our clients who have passed that threshold and can have sufficient download numbers to get the bigger advertisers on their show. But for most podcasters, again, it's not even that 2/3 or that third. That's sort of rare. It's not even that number that's ever going to have it. But I want to talk about it though, because there are ways to get advertising that don't involve getting tons and tons of downloads. Okay, so let's think about the standard, the most advertisers. So most sponsors, most advertisers are going to require a podcast to have at least 5,000 downloads of an episode in the first 30 days after its release. So first 30 days, 5,000 downloads. They're going to require that to even consider starting an advertising relationship with that podcast. And if you think about it, that you've heard me talk about stats before, 5,000 downloads after 30 days, that's really only the top 7% of podcasts that accomplish those download numbers on a regular basis. So you can understand why this is my least recommended strategy when we're talking about monetizing a podcast. And I want to go even further so you can think about it. You've probably heard terms like CPM and stuff like that. So even if you have 5,000 downloads of a single episode in the first 30 days, that number only qualifies you for an advertising rate of about $25 CPM. Okay. And that's based on accurate, up-to-date numbers from AdvertiseCast that releases these numbers monthly. So $25 CPM if you get 5,000 downloads on a single episode in the first 30 days. That means that for a 60-second advertisement read by the podcast host, you'd get $25 per 1,000 downloads of an episode with that advertisement in it. Okay. So 5,000 downloads has just netted you $125 for that episode. Okay. So you see what I mean? You have to have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of downloads to really make significant money from advertising. So I just want to repeat that again. So at that $25 CPM rate, a 60-second ad read nets you $25 per 1,000 downloads on an episode. Okay. So it's not a lot of money. So like I said, there are ways though. Perhaps there's a better way for the small podcast, the smaller podcast that can't reach those numbers. So think about it this way. Do you know a business that would love to get in front of your 100, 500, 1,000 listeners each week? Okay. If you have follower numbers like that, like 150 followers or 500 followers, or you're seeing 500 downloads after 30 days, or you're seeing 1,000 downloads after 30 days on an episode. Do you know a business that would like to get in front of that audience? Do you have a targeted audience? So chances are there are businesses that would be willing to pay similar CPM rates, or even more maybe, for the ability to get their ads in front of a targeted audience. So if you have an audience that's very focused and you have products that you recommend, or you know businesses that would love to get in front of that audience, think about that, because that might be your opportunity to get advertising. Now, if you'd like to try for bigger advertisers, another great strategy that you can use is to take your smaller show and join a network where you can leverage the size of the network. Say the network advertises across all of its shows. That's a way where you can get ad revenue from companies that might want to advertise across that whole network, and maybe you can help bring them in. Now, and once you grow your podcast, because you all are going to have this goal, and I want you to get there. Once you grow the podcast to the point where you have 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 downloads or more in the first 30 days an episode is out, you can actually begin a relationship with an ad buyer or an ad network and make it easier to find ads for your show. I'm going to put these links in the show notes, but I strongly recommend checking out AdvertiseCast. AdvertiseCast is owned by Libsyn. They are very reputable, a big network. AdvertiseCast.com, you can check them out. There's also Acast, which is a really great network that has a sales team that they assign to some of their shows and things like that. Acast.com. I also have worked in the past with ad buyers. Like the one that I really love and have a great relationship with is True Native Media. They will actually talk with you and figure out what types of advertisers you're interested in and handle those agreements and things like that. Now, again, talking to AdvertiseCast, Acast, True Native Media, you really should only get to that point when you're 20,000 downloads an episode, 10,000 downloads an episode after that first 30 days. Okay. So finding advertisers for your podcast can be difficult, especially for smaller podcasts, but it's a viable option for all podcasts if you choose to use that right strategy for your podcast. If you're a smaller podcast, what I would love for you to do right now, so if you're under 5,000 downloads per month, take a moment to write out 2 specific businesses who would love to have time on your podcast to promote their product to your specific audience, and then go ahead and pitch those businesses. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if this worked out. Let me know if you have any businesses in mind that you can approach right now. I'd love to hear about your successes there. So again, I'm always happy for you to rate and review this podcast. I'm going to start getting in the habit of reading recent reviews on upcoming episodes. And so I would love to include yours and let other people know what you enjoy about this show. Next week, I'm going to be talking about batch recording. So it's a technique that I have not talked about much before, but it's the secret sauce for how a lot of podcasters get more done quickly and get more podcast episodes out there in the world without having to stress about the scheduling of them. So until next week, I will see you then.